Hey guys, it's Phil coming at you with another video. Today I'm going to be going over DSM-5 diagnoses, as well as briefly touching on some study tips to help you with the exam. So the first thing that I want to say is thank you guys so much again for the support, as well as all of the love that you guys are showing, and congratulations to everyone that is passing using the style that I introduced to you guys, as well as just having you guys slow down and focus on the important parts about the exam. So let's get into this thing. So I do offer study groups as well as private tutoring. So next week's study group is going to be on research, program evaluation, and program development. And that is going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you're interested, just send me an email at the email above, and I'll get back to you and then provide you the information on how to join that study group. And before I get into the actual video, I just want to touch on a topic that a lot of people have been discussing, or I've just been seeing around of, hey, I just took the ASWB practice exam, what do I do now? This was my score. Do you think I'm ready? Do I not think I'm ready? And the question is, it's all about the comfortability of how you feel while answering the questions. Like, you could do poorly on the ASWB practice exam and do really well on the actual exam, or vice versa. So I wouldn't get too swept away on the particular scores that you guys get when you take the ASWB practice exam. I would just focus on how you felt during the exam. How did you feel while breaking down the exam questions? And what was the routine that you followed? Because those that have worked with me, I always embrace and tell people to follow specific routines, so that way when you get into the exam, it's second nature when answering the questions. So now that that's out of the way, I just see that a lot, so I just wanted to touch base on that. Let's get into the actual questions today, guys. So question 1, and again, I don't have the box over here because DSM, we can't really apply the acronym to this, so that is why that box is gone. So the first question: a social worker in an outpatient setting is completing an intake assessment with a 35-year-old male, reports feeling like his friends are out to get him. The man reports that he has not been sleeping well for the past 8 days, and that it feels like his mind will not shut off. The man reported spending money that he does not have, and that he feels pressured to engage in conversation with everyone he meets. Client reports having a history of hospitalization, and that he's been arrested for getting into fights with people. What is the best diagnosis? Describe the client's symptoms. So we always want to remember what setting we're in. So we're in an outpatient setting. What are we actually doing? We're doing an intake assessment. Who are we doing it with? A 35-year-old male. And he's feeling like people are out to get him. And other symptomology he's talking about is that he's not been sleeping, and it feels like his mind hasn't been able to shut off. And always about diagnosis questions, we want to figure out the amount of time. So in this time, it's 8 days, and he reported spending money that he does not have and feels pressured to engage in conversation, so a little bit of pressured speech as well as risk-taking behaviors. And there's a history of hospitalization, as well as being arrested for getting into fights with people. So on this one, we would have to know the exact diagnosis or have some type of bearing on what the difference between all of those are. So bipolar I disorder is mania or hypomania for 1 week or longer, and to differentiate them equals mania is often 1 week, or hypomania is 4 days or longer. And then bipolar II disorder is where we have hypomania, which is 4 days or more. Schizoaffective is a mixture of bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, / hallucinations for 2 weeks, as well as depressive type symptoms. So it mixes bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or like hallucinations, as well as major depressive disorder type symptoms all in the same. And the length of time there, the biggest distinction is the 2 weeks for the hallucinations, as well as it have to meet the bipolar disorder 1, which is mania is a week or longer, or hypomania, which is 4 days or more. And major depressive disorder, as we know, is 2 weeks of onset, but typically like to generally say like 30 days or more. And then brief psychotic disorder, we're looking at less than 30 days. So out of that, we know that this is 8 days, so it's going to automatically rule out brief psychotic disorder because there's no real delusions or hallucinations or anything like that cited in here. So it wouldn't be really a psychotic disorder. And since there are no really psychosis type symptoms being reported here, it wouldn't be schizoaffective either. So then we're going to be in between the two bipolars. So we're looking at bipolar 1 or bipolar 2 disorder. And we have 8 days. So it could potentially be hypomania. But a key thing in bipolar 1 is has a clinically significant impact on someone's functioning, such as hospitalization. And then bipolar 2 disorder does not require clinically significant impact on someone's life. Does not. So that is where, since the person's being hospitalized and is getting into fights and arrested, this is where we're going to say it's bipolar 1 disorder, because those symptomologies are the ones that have more impact on the person's functioning, such as this disorder does. So that's the answer to the first one, bipolar 1 disorder. So the next question, a 21-year-old client has been working with a social worker at a community mental health clinic for the past 5 months. The client reports hearing voices that tell him to hurt his parents and that they have caused him to isolate from social situations. And the client reports finding it difficult to sleep and that he feels like someone from his dream is going to hurt him. The client denies being hospitalized and that he can keep his symptoms under control. What would be the most likely diagnosis for this client? Again, we always want to figure out who the client is. So a 21-year-old, what is our setting? Community mental health clinic. The time that we're looking at here is 5 months, so that's going to be significant in diagnosing this person. First symptomology that we see here is they're hearing voices, and they're command voices because they're telling him to hurt his parents. And he's isolating from social situations. The client reports finding it difficult to sleep, so there's a sleep impairment. And then he feels like someone from his dreams is going to hurt him, so some maybe delusion type behavior. And he hasn't been hospitalized, which is important when diagnosing. Yeah, not in this particular question, but whenever there is hospitalization, you want to take note of it. And then that leaves us with bipolar disorder with psychotic features, and as stated before, mania or hypomania with hallucinations. And then brief psychotic disorder is less than 30 days. Schizophreniform, 1 month to 5 months, but less than 6 months. And then schizophrenia is 6 months or longer. And then when we look back at the question, it's telling us that we're looking at 5 months here. So bipolar is automatically going to be ruled out because there's no real signs of mania being cited within the question. And brief psychotic disorder, since 5 months is longer than 30 days, we're going to rule that out. And then since schizophrenia is 6 months or longer, that is going to look at schizophreniform, which a clever way to remember this is pre-form to schizophrenia. And brief psychotic disorder, the emphasis is on brief. So brief equals 30 days. And if you know your trauma disorders, acute stress disorder is also less than 30 days. So whenever you think of acute or brief, think less than 30 days. So brief is less than 30 days. And then, yeah. So that is how you would answer and look at that question. So the next question, a 45-year-old client is referred to a social worker in an outpatient clinic by their employer due to having erratic behavior while at work. The client reports feeling like he's not valued at work, and without him there, the company would go out of business. The client reports getting into frequent arguments with his boss, and that he feels like he knows more than his boss does, so he does not listen to him. The client begins discussing how he plans to open his own business and the amount of money he will have. What disorder best describes the symptoms the client is exhibiting? So who is our client here? The 45-year-old client. Outpatient clinic. And there's some erratic behavior at work. Creeps. So the client reports, so it's important to know that they're the one that actually telling you the information. And he's feeling like he's not valued at work, and without him there, the company would go out of business. So maybe some delusional type behavior. The client reports getting into frequent arguments with his boss. And he feels like he knows more than his boss does, so still some delusional type stuff. And the client begins discussing how he plans to open his own business and the amount of money he'll have. So what is the best disorder? So borderline is often associated when someone has a fear of losing relationships with those around them and will do anything to keep them, such as like self-harm, and impulsive behaviors, and then they will feel empty and like no one cares as much as they do. And I'm going to move this up so that way we don't move to the next page. And then we're looking at, next one we're looking at is narcissist. So someone that has this type behavior is they have a sense of grandiosity, or feeling more of themselves. They believe they are special, and they are envious of people and believe others are as well, and look for admiration from others. And then another thing, fantasies about power, money, or sex. Okay, and then the bipolar disorder again is mania or hypomania with depression episode. Well, and then obsessive compulsive personality disorder. This is where someone is preoccupied with structure, rules, perfectionism type personality, and is inflexible with their goals. And unable to throw out objects even when they are worn out. And stubborn. So those are just brief descriptions. I could go further in depth on how to diagnose them, but just for the sake of the video, I'll keep it kind of brief. So if we remember that they feel like they're not valued at work and that it could go out of business without them, feels like they know more than their boss does, and would like to open their business and fantasizes about the amount of money they can get. So borderline personality would be incorrect here, because even though they do feel kind of like empty or like they aren't valued, they aren't doing any erratic behaviors to keep the relationship going, or they're not having any like self-harm or suicidal type attempts, or clinging on to people easily and feeling like the relationship doesn't end based on something that they have done. Narcissist personality disorder, possibly because they have a sense of grandiosity and that they're special and that people should be envious, and they are dreaming about opening a business and getting money. So we'll keep that one in the race. And then bipolar disorder is incorrect because there's no real mania, no real sight of depression or person not sleeping well. And then obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So they are very kind of like structured about the rules and want to get the business running and feel like they know more than their boss does. But there's no real like perfectionism, or that someone's so stuck on something. So we would rule out obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So this person is exhibiting narcissistic personality disorder because they're preoccupied with the amount of power. They don't feel like they're valued enough, and they feel like they know more than their boss does, and they dream of opening a business and getting a lot of money out of their actual behavior. So that is how you would answer that question. Crank this up a little bit. So question number 4. A social worker working in a private practice is completing an intake assessment with a 16-year-old boy. The boy reports feeling on edge and that something awful is going to happen, which has caused him to avoid social interaction with his friends. The boy reports that no one believes him when he talks about his worry, which has caused him to be more irritable. The client reports that he finds it difficult to sleep at night since it feels like his mind won't shut off. The boy reports that he has been feeling this way for 6 months and that he hopes you'll be able to help him. What diagnosis best describes the client's symptoms? So where we're at, private practice, what we're doing, completed an intake assessment. Who's our client? 16-year-old lad. So feeling on edge and something awful is going to happen. Potential symptom, avoiding social interaction with friends. Believes that no one believes him, so he's more irritable. So there's some irritability type symptoms. Difficult to sleep at night because his mind won't shut off, so some flight of ideas going through his mind. And 6 months is how long that he's been feeling it. So keep that in mind as we go through the different answers. So social anxiety disorder, 6 months or longer. And this is where someone will be anxious to be in social situations for fear of being scrutinized. Generalized anxiety disorder, again, 6 months or longer. And this is where someone will be irritable, feeling on edge, fear of something awful happening, sleep disturbance, separation anxiety disorder. This one is 1 month for children, 6 months for adults. And this is where someone will become anxious when they are apart from their caregiver or someone significant. Client will feel sick and do anything to get back close to the identified person. And then acute stress disorder, where again I alluded to kind of earlier in the video, is whoops, that is not what we wanted. Less than 30 days and trauma related. So when we look at this back of this question, someone's feeling on edge, more irritable, and difficulty sleeping at night. So here it's not really trauma related. They haven't witnessed or been a part of any traumatic events. The 1 month to 6 months for adults for separation anxiety, but this person isn't really saying that they're away from a caregiver or someone significant in their life. So their symptoms aren't being onset due to some type of disconnect from someone. And even though they're avoiding social interactions based on feeling on edge, it's not saying that they're avoiding the social interaction for fear of being scrutinized or that their friends will belittle them or anything like that. So they're not really anxious to be in the social setting. They're just avoiding the social setting because they feel anxious. So with that, we're going to say it's generalized anxiety disorder because they're worried about multiple things in general, not really any particular thing that's triggering this off, but their anxiety is still following the same symptomology as other anxiety disorders. So that's how we would answer that one. So the next question A clinical social worker is evaluating a 31-year-old client who reports having difficulty focusing on their responsibilities. The client reports that 2 weeks ago he experienced increased heart rate, excessive sweating, difficulty breathing, and he felt like he was outside of his body. He reports that he's not entirely sure what makes him feel this way, but he's in consistent fear of it happening again. And we'll change this to constant fear. He's in constant fear of it happening again. So who are we? We're that clinical social worker. And who is our client? A 31-year-old client. And presenting for difficulty focusing on their responsibilities. So how long? 2 weeks. And we have increased heart rate, excessive sweating, difficulty breathing, and then out of body type experience. And not really sure, but he is constant fear of it happening again. So generalized anxiety disorder is again 6 months with irritability, feeling on edge, sleep disturbance, fear of something awful happening, and worrying about different things at the same time. Panic disorder, physiological symptoms such as increased heart rate, sweating, twitching / shaking, fear of dying, and feelings of unreality, and fears having future panic attacks. Social anxiety disorder again, we're looking at 6 months or longer with someone being being anxious of going into public social situations due to fear of being scrutinized, being criticized. And then brief stress disorder does not exist. So we'll take that out because that one honestly does not exist. I made it up, put brief instead of acute. So keep in mind that this is 2 weeks, and so here generalized with the 6 months or longer would be out. Social anxiety disorder with the 6 months or longer would be out. So since this person is having some physiological effects around just different types of situations, panic disorder, you don't really need a trigger to have them happen. So that would be the correct answer there. So again, thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. It's pretty astounding how many people come and watch the videos and listen to me. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but I'm not uploading this on Sunday because I had a lecture at the University of Michigan and I was kind of behind on everything. So I'm releasing this now. But I do really am dedicated to producing videos for you guys, so I wasn't going to skip a week. So again, I do offer private tutoring, so just send me an email if you're interested on that. Comment any feedback that you have on the video, what you thought about the questions, how many you got correct, which were tricky, what were not tricky, like the video so that way people will get attracted to the video and know that the content exists. The more likes on the video, the more exposure it gets. Click subscribe on my channel if you're not already subscribed, so that way you get email notifications whenever I upload videos. And again, I'm doing a study group on research, program evaluation, and program development this Sunday, November 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So get a hold of me if you want to be included in that. And thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful week, and know that you guys are all amazing social workers and are doing your thing to change the world. And don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't do anything. So stay true to you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out, guys.